Chapter 5, Workflow Steps in Radiology. The basics of understanding the design and testing of digital imaging workflow lies in utilizing existing business tools outside of informatics for workflow documentation, knowing the specifics of DICOM and HL7 as they apply to digital imaging workflow, and using the integrated healthcare enterprise workflow models as templates for local workflow. Digital imaging workflow is a combination of HL7, DICOM, and business administration, all rolled into one. Refer to figure 5.1 in your book. This shows RIS, PACS, report management, and electronic medical record workflow steps. The key to the whole workflow process is to design a workflow that achieves the desired clinical results with the new system, instead of just re-implementing electronically the same workflows that were already in place in the film-based world. One of the important steps of understanding the HL7 and DICOM aspects of digital imaging workflow is the concept of event triggers. An event trigger is a single workflow event that may produce a cascade of other workflow events, some of which are automated and some of which rely on manual input. So think of it as kind of like a domino effect that occurs. So for example, the action of a tech just simply clicking on a button on the CT scanner and initiating the transmission of DICOM images to the PACS may actually trigger yet more automated actions further down in the workflow, such as potentially the PACS forwarding an HL7 message to the EMR signaling new image availability, saying, hey, there are new images here. All right, so I created this slide to just simply show the workflow steps and give examples of what they are. And so, for example, a radiologist has different workflow steps than a tech. For the radiologist, first they're going to log into PACS. They're going to set their filters. Maybe they want to just read CT cases, so they're going to set the filter to just read the CT exams that are done for that day. They're going to actually click on the study that they want to read, which is launching the case. The next step may be for the rad to collect clinical data regarding the patient's exam, possibly just looking at the patient's history and what their symptoms are that day for that exam. Maybe also collecting prior exams that can help them read for this current study. Next, they review and interpret the images, and then they actually dictate a report. Then they can either personally convey the urgent or unexpected findings to maybe the ordering doctor or a nurse, or they can have someone else do that. But then the next step is to review and sign the report, and then protocol and check ongoing cases. A technologist has a completely different workflow than the radiologist. First, they will determine who their next patient is, and then they will actually retrieve the patient. They'll look at what the exam is to be done, so they'll determine the protocol. They will actually take the images, then they'll check the images for quality before sending them through, and then they will post-process to create any additional images if needed. This is usually done in CT or MRI. And then they will send the images to PACS and complete the study in the RIS. All right, workflow steps involve everyone. So they have involved the radiologist and the technologist so far that we have talked about, but they also are very important for other clinicians and even other personnel in the radiology world. So for a clinician, first they will order the study. This could be either done by possibly computerized physician order entry, maybe a paper order in the patient's chart, or maybe even a verbal order that was given to the tech by the doctor or nurse. Then they will provide clinical info for the radiologist. So tell the radiologist what is going on with the patient that day, why they need this exam. Then they will review the radiologist's report after he has reported it. This can either be done online in the patient's electronic medical record, or EMR, or it can be done by a paper report. Maybe that's faxed to their office. The next thing in the workflow that the referring clinician could do is contact the radiologist for any clarification that they may need regarding their report. Other personnel that has workflow steps in the radiology world include the transcriptionist. Workflow for a transcriptionist is strongly determined by speech recognition and dictation software. Nurses have workflow steps, maybe radiology nurses or patient care nurses. PACS personnel, file room clerks. Even after the study is transmitted to PACS, they often have to still make CDs and find comparison films, especially if the patient is being sent out to another facility to maybe have more specialized studies done. Integrating the healthcare enterprise workflow model is comprised of a hierarchical sequence of components, which are order, requested order, procedure step, work list, and reports. We're going to define each of these steps to allow us to follow the digital imaging workflow. So for the order step, a formal request is representing certain actions or work products that need to be done. It is closely tied to reimbursement, so orders originate from external systems like the HIS and the EMRs. It is transmitted to RIS and PACS to support integration and automated modality work list processing. So the order needs to be put in so it can show up in the RIS and pop up on the radiology text screen. The requested order represents a fundamental work unit, typically performed together within an encounter that is comprised of one or more procedure steps performed together during the patient encounter. Multiple procedure steps may be required to fulfill the one procedure. For the procedure step, these are discrete and invisible steps that make up the requested procedure as a whole. They're typically associated with common procedural terminology coding or CPT coding. For the work list step, this represents procedures and procedure steps that are to be performed. They are transmitted to the modality via the DICOM modality work list to avoid repetitive manual data entry and data entry error. And then last is the reports. This is just simply the result of a radiologist's interpretation of an exam. So through the Integrating Healthcare Enterprise Initiative, the IHE initiative, there have been templates made for key aspects of the medical imaging workflow. There are several of them out there, and they come in the form of key integration profiles. They are listed on pages 75 and 76 in your book. They list a good amount of them. However, we are specifically going to talk about one of those profiles, which is the scheduled workflow profile. So the scheduled workflow profile integrates ordering, scheduling, imaging acquisition, storage, and viewing for radiology exams. It is the first and most fundamental of the IHE integration profiles out there. All right, so I have a picture here that kind of lays out the scheduled workflow profile. So we're going to start in registration. The patient's going to get registered, and all of the patient information is going to be placed into the system. So the order is going to be placed, and then the order will be filled. So the tech will take the pictures. It will go to the acquisition modality, and then the images will actually be sent to the image manager or the PACS. And then a report is made by the radiologist, which is then flowed back to the ordering clinician so they can read the results of the exam that they ordered. All right, so when we analyze the workflow of a system, the whole goal is to improve and enhance the whole workflow as far as efficiency, reliability, fault tolerance, and transparency goes. Any step in the workflow that requires a prerequisite step or a predecessor step should be completed first, and it should not be available until the prerequisite step has been completed. So an example of this is when a radiologist tries to read an exam before the tech has actually completed it. The rad should not be able to read that exam before the tech has completed it, because the TAC completing it is actually the prerequisite step for the radiologist reading the exam. Another example is when a TAC tries to perform an exam before the order has been finished putting in.